Hi, welcome to wrap up number 3. My name's Graham. This week I'm going to show you my router table, which I made for nothing, or at least very close to nothing, and I think I might do a little bit of carving. I've got a 4-year-old daughter and she absolutely loves Frozen, and I noticed there's a scene where they're on a sort of sled type thing, and it's got some carving across the front of it, and I thought I'd try and copy the carving there, and I might over the next few weeks try and make her a little sled. I'm not sure how big I'm going to make it, maybe just big enough for a teddy bear or something, but I think that would be a lovely little surprise. But I want to have a go at the carving first. But before I do that, I'm going to show you the router table. So this is my current router table. It's not the greatest piece of equipment in the world, but it works, and it cost essentially nothing to build, because it's pretty much built from old scrap bits of wood that I had lying around. The main section of the table here is just an old cupboard door that I found in the house when I moved in. It's actually a really nice piece of ply. It's 18mm with some sort of high pressure laminate on it. So yeah, that's actually quite a nice piece of wood, and the good thing about it was pretty flat when I got it. It was slightly bowed, and so under here it's all thoroughly screwed down, and under here is some shims that just bend it absolutely dead level, and then I routed out to accept the router lift. So I just made a jig for that, and these are actually the lines I used for laying out the jig to route out the hole for this. That was actually quite a difficult job to get that a nice tight fit, and there is a tiny lip. There's maybe 1/2mm lip here, which when I come to make a proper table I'm going to make sure that I don't get that lip. This extension section is literally just an extension section. It's deliberately set slightly lower than the main table, and it's just an old bit desk. The base is part of an old wardrobe that next door neighbour gave us, and this used to be a really large drawer. But what I did was I took the hinges, cause there was a section that sat on top, and I took the hinges off the door for that and fitted them to the bottom of the drawer, and then took out the inside of the drawer so that I've got a section in here. Now this side could be used for storage, but in here is where the router lift lives, and that gives you just enough height for the router to go all the way to the bottom. It is actually, I could do with it being a little bit lower, because I'm a bit concerned if I do put the router all the way to the bottom it will suck up some dust, because you do unfortunately get a little bit of the dust, a bit of the chippings do collect in there. But yeah, that works quite well. I put this baffle in the middle to ensure that basically that you get a better vacuum in this section of the box. The smaller you can make this area, the better the suction's going to be. You have to be a little bit careful as well about sealing the door at any front, because obviously you want your vacuum extractor or your dust extractor to suck down through this hole typically. So any air that gets in through here is going to reduce the suction there. So what I've done is I've fitted strips of wood inside to improve the seal around the door, and all inside, all under here and all around here, I've put silicone sealant to stop the air getting in. So when this device is running, I mean, you can see there's no catch on the door, but when the vacuum's on, this door is held firmly shut. There is a bit of air leakage around it. It's not as good as it could be, but it's good enough. I'm going to just show you down here where I put the power in. So obviously I need to get power in to the router, and this is the idea that I came up with for that. I think this is quite a nice solution to the problem. Now typically on a router table what you want is a 0-volt release switch. What that means is if power is cut to the router, it won't come back on. The switch will disengage. So if you've got a power cut, or if you forget that you've left the router on, when you go to plug it back in again, it won't start automatically. I don't have a 0-volt release switch at the minute, but I will be fitting one to to my final router table when I build it. But this is what I've got at the minute. And what you can do, well, you can see I've drilled a hole under there, and push the plug head through, and then just that closes down over the wire. Now you do get a little bit of air leakage through here, but like with the front door, when the vacuum is on, that is held very firmly tight. You probably couldn't lift that open when the vacuum's on. You can just about pull the door open because you've got a handle. So there you go, and then you just go and plug that in, and off you go. Right, so there's the inside of the router table. You can see I've been routing a bit of plywood, and you can see that I do get some dust collecting on the inside, pretty much where you'd expect, up in the corners, and along this edge. It's always along this edge. I think maybe the air leaking through the power hole is enough to draw the dust away, or possibly air leaks through here as well. But yeah, so it collects up the corners where the air moves most slowly. You can just, at the back there, you can see the extraction port where the air goes out, and that's a 100mm drain pipe connection. And you can see I've got it going into a 4-inch connection from a dust extractor at the moment. But yeah, that works well. All the holes are, all the edges are sealed with silicone, as I said, and it's all siliconed around the extraction port. You can see as well I've bolted that on. So what I did was, because that back is only maybe 4mm of ply, so I bolted on a thicker section of wood in order to receive the extraction port. But I'll show you the back now. So there you go, that's the back. As you can see, it's just a regular drainage connector, 100mm drainage connector, and then I've got it going into the extractor pipe, the flexible hose. Unfortunately, they're slightly different sizes, as I'm sure all woodworkers know. But a bit of cloth in there is perfectly good for a seal, and of course when it's under vacuum it sucks the cloth in, and that's it. You've got a good tight seal. You have to fit a strengthening plate to the back, otherwise you wouldn't get a good seal. This would just pull free, but as you can see now with the strengthening plate on there, that's good and solid. Right, so onto the fence. The front of the fence is a piece of oak laminate flooring, solid wood oak laminate flooring. It's got probably a polyurethane spray finish on it, which means it's lovely and smooth, and being engineered wood, it is perfectly flat. It is, well, easily flat enough for any woodwork that you'd want to do. Initially I built just the face and the base of the fence, but after using the fence for a while I realised I needed some extraction through the fence, which is why I added this part. So the dust extraction port's built much like the rest of the fence. It's just a couple of mitre blocks with a face piece over it that I've screwed down rather than glued, so that I can access in there for servicing if I need to. This is just a piece of 50mm drain pipe. I've got an adapter that I can attach to here so that I can extract using a vacuum cleaner or something like that, rather than my main dust extractor, because if I want through the table extraction and through the fence extraction, then I find I don't get enough suction with both of them going. So typically this needs a different suction device attached to it, but that's easy. You know, you can either stick your vacuum hose in it and then just pad around like I do for the back extraction port, or just build an adapter onto there. I think on my final table I'll make it easier to attach this to the 100mm as well, because it would be nice to be able to run just a single dust extraction, but it works pretty well as is. When it comes to fence adjustment for router tables, there's two options. You can either fit parallel tracks, which allow you to move the whole fence forwards and backwards in parallel with the router insert, or you can use the pivoting method. And I chose to use the pivoting method because, quite frankly, it's simple. So what I've done is in my tabletop I've drilled some 8mm holes. I think they look about 50mm spaced. It doesn't really matter though. this is more convenient. You could use just a single hole, but a series of holes is probably a little bit easier. Then I drilled a hole down through the bottom of my fence, again at 8mm, and all I've done is just pushed an 8mm drill bit through. As you can see, I've drilled 2 holes, and if you space these at 40mm and these at 50mm, then you get even more adjustment. But to be honest, I've only found I've needed that 1 hole and these 2 holes in the tabletop. I could imagine needing some further out. If I was say dadoing, doing a very wide dado, I might need some of these back holes, possibly. It's unlikely, to be honest, that just these 2 and that 1 are probably all you need. Now, what you do there, and then all you do is just drop your drill bit, so your drill bit protrudes very slightly through the bottom of your fence, and then you just, this is the awkward bit, you've got to try and line it up with a hole. There you go. Right, so it's down in a hole now, and so your fence now pivots about that point. And all you do is on this side, down here, you clamp the fence. So you just got a regular G-clamp or something, and you just clamp it down here, and that then sets the distance across here. If you need to adjust it, just slacken off the clamp slightly and just tap that, and you can get an amazingly accurate setting here. Because basically your accuracy is being multiplied by that distance. So if you move it 1mm at this end, so you just draw a line here, and then if you just tap that back 1mm, you're probably adjusting it 0.5mm or less at this point. And the greater the distance between your pivot and the point that you're adjusting, the greater your accuracy can be. There is a tiny bit of play in that, and in my final version, it'll probably be an aluminium plate, and and I'll do something to harden these so they're a much better pivot point. But yeah, this works absolutely brilliantly, and I'm definitely going to go for this method when I build my final table. It's worked an absolute treat, better than I can imagine. I've seen other people where they clamp at both ends, but don't do it. Just drill a couple of holes and get yourself a pivot point. It really works. So unfortunately, look at that. First time I used the router insert, I managed to scratch the finish on it. How frustrating. Anyway, the final feature is an adjustable fence. So I've got, as you saw, I've got a couple of wing nuts there, and I can just open it. I can open the fence up, and then that's my extraction port. That I had to cut that after the fact, after the fence was built, which has left it a bit of a raggedy hole, but it's not too bad. I made it that big because it's basically the largest router bit that I could ever fit in there. That is one slight downside of the pivot option is, as you can see here, it overlaps slightly, so you've got to be a bit careful. Yeah, so you can close that right up nice and tight. So you've only got the minimal amount of bit showing, and you get the best suction through there possible. I have actually got an idea for zero clearance inserts, which I'm going to build into my next table. Basically just route channels down here so I can slide in a piece of scrap wood and make a zero clearance insert. So there you go, that's my router table. I hope you like it. It's done me proud so far. It's been going about 2 years now, but hopefully by the end of summer this year I should have a new one built, which will be even better. Right then, so I'm going to have a little go at some carving. This is the pattern I'm aiming for. It's the pattern off the front of the sleigh in Frozen. I'm not very good at carving yet. This is probably only my 3rd attempt at carving, and I haven't exactly got any good wood to carve at the minute. I've had a little rustle through my scraps bin, and all I can find is bits of pine, so looks like I'm going to be carving some pine. Pine, I've tried pine before. It doesn't cut very well. You need exceptionally sharp tools to work pine, and they are exceptionally sharp, but even then it's still pretty hit and miss, but yeah, I'll give it a go. I'm going to try laying it out on this, just a little piece first. A couple of knots, but I'll just try and avoid the knots. You just can't carve through a knot, really. It's impossible. But I'll lay it out and I'll do a little test on there, and if I'm any good, then I'll maybe try it on this piece or this bit, which is that's a fairly nice bit of wood. Apart from that one knot, I could get some good carving in there. Right, so first thing, I'm going to try and lay out the pattern. I'm not going for any particular size or anything. It's literally just by eye, because I think, you know, for an authentic look, you're going to want it looking a little bit rough and ready. That's what the sleigh is going to have. It was just a bit of decoration. Okay, so there we go. We've got the first thing. We've got two full. Well, actually, we've got exactly what I've drawn there. So two laid out already. Now I need to put a diamond inside each one of these. So what I'll do is, if I divide it up in half, I can put another line in. There we go. So that's what I'm going to have a crack at carving. Oh, I'm quite chuffed with that. So this section needs to come out. This is flat bottomed around here. These are, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do the flat bottom holes yet. We'll just mark them up as those bits are just sunk down, and then these are they have slope faces, faceted faces, and then this is all high ground, so it's left as it is. So I reckon I'll get a good carve out of that. None of these bits are the trickiest bits, and they're not near any knots. In fact, the knots rather conveniently fallen on some high ground. Yeah, cool. Right then, let the wood butchering commence. I've got my, what is it, 16mm straight chisel there. I think that's the only one I'm going to need. It's a bit bigger than I hoped for, but it's the only straight chisel I've got. All the others were gouges. I thought I had a smaller straight, but yes, so off I go. I've got some regular chisels as well if I need to. there we go, my first shot at the carving on the frozen sled. Probably not the best bit of carving you've ever seen. Little bit scrappy in here. Not quite sure how to get a nice flat bottom to these areas. Unfortunately, I tried to tidy up this button and slipped, so I've chipped it there. But I mean, it's supposed to look a bit rough and ready. This was a sled carved out of a rough stock. Probably it wasn't designed, and it would probably have been painted as well, I'd guess. So yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with it. I think it looks quite nice. So I need a chisel, say ground at like, I don't know, 30 degrees, to a point at 30 degrees, so I can get in and clean up these corners. Because trying to clean it up, the best I managed, as you probably saw, was to try and slide the chisel in like this, but then you're still picking the bits of wood out, which leaves you quite rough up the corners. So yeah, so I'll have to buy a cheap, because I need a little chisel like this, and I'll buy a cheap little chisel and grind it to an angle so I can get in there. They're useful as well. If you get left and right ground chisels, you can clean up dovetails with them as well, so they're quite handy. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is just plane down these sides so that I've got a nice straight edge on them, and then go and show the daughter and the wife, because I think they'll be quite impressed with that. So there we go, just quickly run the plane over it, give me nice straight edges here. I wish I'd done that before, actually. It would have made laying out a little bit easier. Yeah, got to work on getting the bottom of these holes flat. Okay, well that's wrap up number 3. I hope you enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed doing a bit of that carving. I think I might, over the next week, try and get some plans together for the frozen sled, because I quite enjoyed that carving. I think I'd quite enjoy trying to make a version of that sled for the daughter. She's absolutely totally addicted to Frozen at the minute. She loves watching Frozen on my tablet. So what I might do is see if I can design somewhere I can sit the tablet in the sled, and then she can sit in the sled and watch Frozen at the same time. Which I think she'd get a real kick out of that. And I quite enjoy trying to make some way. I've never made anything like a sled or anything like that. It's all furniture. It's all straight lines, and I quite fancy the idea of making something with a few curves in it. So yeah, so that's maybe what I'll look into next week. Hopefully I'll get over this awful cold that I've had, because it's feeling really bunged up still. The CNC machine is coming on, I think. I've swapped a couple of emails with the guy that's going to be cutting my parts for me, and he said in the next few weeks, he should have them cut. So that's good news. Hopefully that will coincide with the start of the build of my new workshop, because I'd really like for the CNC to be the first thing I really build in the new workshop. Anyway, I think that's about it. So yeah, what was it? Click, link, subscribe, link, click, like. Yeah, share this video around. Cheers. Till next week. Bye.